All right, remember how I had gotten this curriculum at the beginning of the summer, and I said I wanted to go through it before ever giving it to my kids to go through, just because I am super picky with these kind of books. I feel like a lot of them teach unhealthy relationships with food, and I want my kids to learn the actual science behind food and not just the fear that's taught with food. I want them to learn how they can fuel their bodies properly to do the things they want to do, but also still enjoy those fun treats every now and then. Just keeping it all balanced well, and doing just actually learning about the science of nutrition and things like that, and not the fear of it that shouldn't even be here. But here we are with all these stupid diet fads and programs and things like that, and I don't want my kids to ever feel like they have to fall down that trap. Anyways, so I do have some cons, and I'll share my cons first, and then I'll share my pros after that. So, one of the cons is here it has a big caution mark, and it talks about nitrates. You don't want nitrates because they're bad, and may possibly show links to cancer, which has been proven not to be true. And a few pages later, like a couple chapters later, whoops, just lost it. And by a couple, I mean like a pretty good chunk chapter later, it shows dark leafy greens as being a superfood. I hate that people do that, but at the same time, I've done it too. But it shows that dark leafy greens are a superfood, and dark leafy greens actually have quite a bit of nitrates in them. In fact, the bacon that says it's nitrate free is actually got salt and stuff like that from celery, things like that. So it's not really nitrate free. But yeah, it's not necessarily bad for you. Another thing that I didn't like is that it kind of demonizes sugar a little bit, which I don't like. Especially it has a chapter in there where it says if you're sick, make sure you don't have any sugar at all. Whereas things like honey and maple syrup have quite a bit of sugar in it. Like, have you ever checked the sugar on maple syrup? It's intense. I actually had, so my kids really like chocolate syrup on their pancakes, and somebody was like, oh my gosh, that has so much sugar in it. And I can't believe you gave that to your kids. Meanwhile, they're pouring maple syrup on their pancakes, and I'm like, that has more sugar in it. So, yeah, it's just like, it has more. It has a lot. But it also has so many health benefits to it, that it should not be feared at all. It should not be a food that you ever fear. And when you're sick, maple syrup and honey have so many healing properties to them that you should be adding it to your tea, or it's not something that you necessarily have to avoid. I do agree that having those super refined processed sugars should be avoided when you're sick, but it didn't make that clear in this book. So that sugar portion, I'm gonna create my own for that, because I think the things that we need to avoid are those super refined processed sugars and the artificial sweeteners. I want my kids, so like for us, we do a raw sugar for our everyday type of sugar. And then, I don't check too hard on sugar content in some foods, but we allow our kids to have fruit. And that's another thing, when you're sick, orange juice, like, that has sugar in it. So it didn't make it clear in the book, and so that's probably a section we're going to skip over. And then, so yeah, that's kind of the cons. So not enough cons to completely throw away the book, but yeah, those were some of the things that I'm like, So far, it has been one of the better nutrition books that I have found. I actually thought I had found a really great one last year, but after digging deeper into it before buying it, I never did buy it, but digging deeper into it and following the author of that book, it was like, it did teach a lot of micronutrients, but it went too far and too heavy into if you have any kind of processed food at all, whatever, you are poisoning yourself and you are poisoning your kids and all that, and like really made like processed food feared. And I'm like, that's not good either. That's kind of borderline orthorexic there. And so I didn't want that. I don't want my kids to do that, fear that at all. Like, I mean, we have them. Like, it's technically everything is processed unless you are going straight up to your garden and like biting the vegetable from the ground. Like, it's gonna go through some sort of process. And so it just is like, yeah, that's not good either. I need to find something better. And then this came out and I was so excited. And one of the things that I really love about this is that it connects nutrition to the Bible, which I really love. It's something that really helped me start to understand nutrition, especially, like, a lot of people laugh when I say this, but I'm like, it's legit true. So God says that he is the bread of life. Carbs are our body's main energy source. He's the one that created us. So God is, when he's saying he's the bread of life, he is saying he's our main energy source. And so, like, it's the connection there. And, like, I don't think God did that on accident. Like, oh, that just so happened to be true. Like, no, he pointed it out in the Bible. And then he led his people to the land of milk and honey. He didn't lead his people to the land of milk and honey to be avoided, to have ourselves fear that stuff and never ever go near it. And so, and there's so many Bible verses beyond that like connect nutrition and how it's actually supposed to be. And I dug deep down into that, like, probably about 7 years ago now, and I had a plan to create my own nutrition program based on that, but kids, so I haven't had the time to do that, and the passion for that kind of has dwindled a little bit, but I still want to teach that to my kids and have it be in a way that they can understand, and so I'm happy that this book does do that. And then other thing, it has like a little exercise each day. Like, here's like a little butterfly stretch that you can do while you're doing your lesson. And it has like fun stuff like crossword for word searches and things like that. And then also here it talks about how calories are actually energy and not something to be feared. And that if you want to be fueled and have energy throughout your day, you're gonna need to eat some food. In fact, I actually already used this book. One of my friends had said that she was going on this new program and they had her at 1,400 calories. And this girl, she is a lot taller than me, and I'm 5'8", so she's a lot taller than me. She had just started an intense weightlifting program, an intense cardio program. She has, I think, 6 kids. And I was like, that is nowhere near enough calories. And in fact, here it has like kind of a guide, which I also don't really like because I don't think you should be counting these unnecessarily. I think you should focus more on like micronutrients and overall fueling your body. But, and so yeah, it has like a calorie thing. I'm like, you are eating calories for an 11-year-old girl, not a grown woman that has a life and tons of kids and extremely active. Like, you need to eat more. And then she did start eating more and she felt so much better. But yeah, I want my kids to have these tools. So I use this book. I'm like, look, here's the proof. But yeah, so overall, yes, I like this book. We are gonna do it. One thing I will say, a lot of comments on the actual Master Books Mom page is that for older kids, it has sections in the lessons to do additional searches on the internet. And a lot of them didn't like it because it has them doing additional searches on things like steroids. And if you Google steroids, you're probably going to get a picture or so of people like Greg Doucette. And that's not necessarily appropriate for kids. So, you know, if you're planning on doing that kind of stuff, just know that you may have to kind of figure out how you're going to research those kind of things without having additional things like that pop up. Because But my kids, I'm not worried about teaching too much about steroids and things like that yet, because they are 9 and 5. I had to think there for a second. 9 and 5, and that's just not something we're worried about just yet. Although they will learn about that eventually, especially as they go down the road of sports and things like that. They need to know that if you fuel your body properly, you're not going to need things like that kind of crap later on. I never ever want them to feel like they have to fall down a fad trap. So, yeah, we're going to try it out and we'll see how it goes.